Hey, I just want to talk about case study 4.1, talking about Helen, who's a 32-year-old African American female. She's married and has a daughter named Sonia, who's 5. The first question is, after reading the initial intake, what would be my initial diagnosis like right now? What psychiatric disorders am I looking at? I'm thinking 296.7, which is bipolar 1, or 296.89, which is bipolar 2 disorder. And just that's kind of where I'm going right now. So, what types of information will I be interested in as I continue the interview? And I think hypomanic versus manic episode, I'll want to see this initial episode that she seems to have, just after talking to her, is it actually hypomanic or manic? I'd like to know what her sleep schedule is, medical conditions, if she has anything. Relationship, it says that she's married, but she doesn't mention her husband at all, so I want to pay attention to that. Any other disorders, and that, can go along with taking her medical history, but any other disorders that she's been diagnosed with, any family history, when I'm looking at like bipolar 1 or bipolar 2, just wanting to see if there's any family history of any other manic episodes, depression, anything like that. It mentions that she has a daughter named Sonia who is 5, and she hasn't said. My question is, where is she during this whole time frame? Does she work? Does she have a job? Does she take any kind of medication? So these are some things that I'll be asking and looking for as I progress and interview her a little bit more. Well, actually, I haven't interviewed her yet till I interview her. So, to what extent do I think Helen may be in danger? And I feel like that she's in maybe a low risk for suicide. She states that she wants to die during her, manic episode, or during her downtime. Could she be at greater risk for one or the other? Also, she states that her daughter is is who's keeping her alive. So, that's her motivation for living. And then it goes on, the next question says, what other information would be useful in determining her risk? So, has she ever attempted suicide? That'd be a question to find out. Does she have a plan now? Does she have the means? So these are some things that I'd want to be asking. I know that the case study, the counselor asks, are you wishing that you would die now? And she responds, not yet, but it usually gets to that point. So, does she feel it more when she's going through more of the downtime, as she calls it, the depressive episodes? So those are some things, but overall, if she came back and responded, that she has hurt herself before, or that she does have the means, or she has a plan, then obviously I feel like I would have to raise that risk. But right now, I think that she's at a low risk for harming herself. The third question asks, what would you like to know about Helen's support system, and are there any steps that you would take, given her permission, it says, to assure that her support system stays intact? So I just want to, talk to her about her family. Is she connected with her family at all? She mentions her sister, who's taking care of her daughter. So, what's that support look like? Does she have friends that she hangs out with? Again, her husband, it doesn't mention her husband at all through the interview or anything. So what's that relationship look like? Are those any kind of social support for her? She doesn't have a job. She says she's struggling with keeping a job. So what does she do all day? As far as does she talk to anybody? Does she stay to herself all the time? Does she attend church? If she does, there might be something there, a support system there for her. And where does her daughter stay when she is not, when she's if she tried to work, where does her daughter stay? Does she have her during the day? And I'd like to talk to her husband. I'd like to talk to her sister specifically, just to kind of find out how those relationships are. The next question talks about her internal strengths versus her external strengths. I feel like that maybe internal strengths, or she knows when she's racing versus when she's having downtime, and she's calling this racing as a hypomanic or a manic episode, and then her downtime to me sounds like a depressive episode. So, but she kind of can tell when that's going on. So I feel like this is an internal strength, because then she's able to recognize, I need to do something with my daughter. I need to make arrangements for her. She's willing to get help. She's willing to ask her sister for help. Towards the end of the interview, she says, she's willing to see a doctor because the counselor suggests, maybe it's not a female thing. A doctor once told her that it was a female thing, her acting this way. And he just, the counselor's saying, maybe, I guess I'm the counselor saying, maybe it's not that. And so she says she guessed it wouldn't hurt. So that's an internal strength, being willing to get help. And then she's not giving into dying. She wants to die, and it sounds like this depressive episode is what causes her to do that. But it's almost like she doesn't have control over that. And so, but it also sounds like she's not giving into that, because she's willing to, focus on her daughter and being there for her. And so external strengths is she's asked her sister to help her with her child. That's an external strength. She's able to talk about her symptoms. I think she does a great job of discussing, exactly how she feels and what a episode feels like when she's racing, or when she feels this high, and then, how it happens when she starts to feel low, or she refers to it as her downtime. And she talks about them. And I think that's a strength. And then, she's attempted to work a job. I also think that's an external strength. Even though she hasn't been able to hold one down, she's gone and tried. So my primary diagnosis is bipolar 1, 296.43, bipolar 1, manic episode, and I'm, categorizing it as severe. I haven't seen the depressive episode. She's been given medication that's helped her sleep and stuff, and so she says she's starting to go into this depression, this downtime. So, she says that it happens a lot. She gets this manic feeling episodes, and then she goes down to the depressive episodes. So just by her self-reporting, she has depressive moods. And I feel like severe is where she's at with that. The DSM says with severe that the number of symptoms is substantially in excess of those required to make the diagnosis. The intensity of the symptoms is severely distressing and unmanageable, and the symptoms markedly interfere with social and occupational functioning. And it sounds like that she's experiencing that. The next question asks what specifiers that I would add to the diagnosis. And with anxious distress, and I feel, moderate to severe. Let's see. It said, the DSM says that you have to have at least 2 of the following symptoms. Feeling keyed up or tense, that's one. Feeling unusually restless, difficulty concentrating because of worry, fear that something awful may happen. She's talking about feeling like she's going to die, and then feeling that individual might lose control of himself or herself. I feel like she has a lot of these, so moderate to severe to go along with it. And if high levels of anxiety have been associated with higher suicide risk, so if she really does have this, then maybe I would go back and look more into the suicide and her harming herself. If this was going to be my diagnosis and it was a true diagnosis, then I would take a greater into consideration her harming herself. Another possibility might be with mixed features. So the full criteria met for manic episode, which it is, or hypomanic, and at least 3 of the following symptoms are present during the majority of the day. So she's got prominent depressed mood, diminished interest or pleasure in all, psychomotor retardation nearly every day. So she's saying these fatigue or loss of energy, and when she goes through these depressive moods, she feels that way. And she's actually kind of experiencing that right now as she's talking to me. So, with mixed features might be another one. And then psychosocial and cultural factors, V codes, V62.29, other problems related to employment. She's not able to keep a job. V62.9, unspecified problems related to her social environment. She's really, went to this bar and she's gotten very loud and almost obnoxious, and the bartender asked her to leave, and so it sounds like socially she has a lot of time, a lot of struggle. And then when she's depressive, she doesn't want to be around anyone or do anything. So again, her social environment's affected. V15.89, other personal risk factors. She's talking about feeling like she, just wants to die, and going out, acting wild and crazy like that. She's admitted that she's been in trouble before, being arrested. She's been hospitalized against her will. She went and fought, with everyone, with the police to arrest her and stuff. So, but for the bipolar 1, I do think that she is having a manic episode because she's not able to function. Hypomanic, she would still have kind of the same symptoms as manic, but she would be able to function. And in a manic episode, she's ended up in the hospital. She's been arrested here. So this current episode, I think, is manic. And then, she's talking about the depressive episode. So that is my diagnosis and findings of this case study. Thank you.